Hello, everybody. This is the new Centre Circle podcast here, mainly focused on West Midlands football. The four main contributors to this podcast is going to be myself, Dale Nichols, representing Wolves, Alex, who's joining us today, representing Birmingham City, another couple of gentlemen will be Sam, representing West Brom, and Drew Ayton, representing Aston Villa. Basic concept of this pod is going to be just a bunch of lads in their 20s with a big passion for sport that hopefully, many of you watching can relate to. We'll often venture into other sports along the way, as many of us do have keen interests outside of football. Some of my previous videos on my channel, you'll probably see that I'm quite a big boxing fan. Leading into the Cheltenham Festival, we'll try and get Sam on a little bit more to offer his horse racing expertise and tips. Drew, who's a low handicapper golfer, member of the world famous Chase Golf Club. He can offer an insight into the upcoming Masters. And Alex, who you can clearly see, also is a massive NFL fan, and he'll be pulling an all-nighter, no doubt, tonight for the big one. Yeah. However, this will mainly be a West Midlands-based chat. We'll try and keep it as professional as possible and not go as X-rated as the recent handful of parish council meeting that we're probably all akin to. However, I hope you enjoy. Like if you like it, subscribe if you like it even more. And if you want to comment to just slag us off, then, no, there's no such thing as bad press, is there? So for now, I've wheeled out the best that Birmingham City has to offer. So over to you, Alex. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you feel Birmingham have fared so far this season, and what you expect for the remainder of the campaign.
I like to skip that question and just forget that Birmingham City exists at the minute because it's not going well. And I think this is our season. I think we'll go down this season, to be honest. It's just awful. Absolutely awful. I think when Karanka came in, it gave me hope. Not hope that we were going to win the league or get playoffs, just hope that we were going to get mid-table and just build for a few years. But we're sitting in the relegation zone after 3-2 loss to Bournemouth yesterday, which, it's Bournemouth, but we were 1-0 up, and I'm sitting there and I just knew that we were going to lose the game because it's what we do. I don't know how, I don't know why, but we're one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league at the minute.
I think historically, through these sort of great escapes that you've had over the past few years, it's sort of, you've almost dropped down to the relegation battle a lot more towards the end of the season and almost had just enough points on the board to get away with it after stringing a couple of wins together. You've never really been sucked in this early before, have you? Knowing that, you've still got best part of 20 games to go. And over those games, you're going to have to probably win 5 or 6 of them. You're looking through your fixture list, you're trying to identify where are these points going to come from. So you look at the teams around you. Sheffield Wednesday, did they start on a deduction of points, was it?
Yeah, I think they had -9. I think it was originally 12, but I think it got reduced to -9.
Wickham, obviously.
I think they started quite well, I think, the start of the season, and they got them points back quite quick. But I think they've dipped off again. But you look at the teams around us, I think Wickham at bottom, they're gone. That said, they've took 4 points off us this season. I think they've won 3 games. One of them was against us, typical. And again, it's what we do. We lose against the shit teams. And normally we beat the good teams, but we're not beating the good teams, but we're not beating anyone. So I just think I can't see us getting out of it. Other teams have games in hand on us as well at the minute. It's just dire at the minute.
I'm just having a little look at your upcoming fixtures now, and I think you've got Luton at home, then you've got Millwall away, and then you've got Sheffield Wednesday away. So of the next 3 games, really, it pretty much is make or break. I think looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah.
You've got to be looking to take an absolute bare minimum of 4 points.
Yeah,
but really,
you've got to win
6.
Yeah, we've got to win 2 games. We've got to win 2 of those games, but it's easy to say we've got to win 2 games. I just can't see us. Honestly, I just can't see us. I don't know where goals are going to come from. We can't keep clean sheets anymore. Karanka's tactics are just awful. There's just no positivity at the minute. And part of me is glad that, because I'm a season ticket holder, part of me is glad that I don't have to go down there and waste my time and watch that shit.
I think you wouldn't be on your own in saying that. I mean, I think you just try and have a little look at the league table now, and I mean, goal difference wise, you're not actually too bad really. You are only minus 13, but some of the other teams around you've got Derby on minus 11, because these sort of things could play. Could come into play towards the end of the season. But the teams that are down now, I mean, Nottingham Forest, they seem to have turned a corner. They were right in there, weren't they? Not so long back.
Yeah.
I think you can look up to probably Coventry in 19th. I think you've got Coventry, Rotherham, Derby, Birmingham.
Yeah.
Wednesday. So you're looking at 2 from 5 there. And my personal opinion is that you're the worst of the bunch.
Yeah, yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, we are. Like the teams around us as well. Like you'd expect the likes of Barnsley and Luton and Coventry and Wickham to be around us, but they're not. And then when you're looking around you and you've got those teams, you're thinking we're better than them. But around us, the likes of Forest, Derby, and Sheffield Wednesday, big teams as well. It's worrying. It is really worrying at the minute.
It's looking forward to the future as well, and thinking that, you know, what you going down to League One, necessarily thinking that could you go down there and could you just end up rotting away down there? Are investors really look at you and think, are you a lucrative acquisition? You know, with a great respect, you don't necessarily pack the ground out on a regular basis, probably due to the fact that how poor it's been over the years. Yeah. But in terms of players and squad, there's no sort of real assets there that are sort of, you know, pocketed from you, and you'll have a cash base to rebuild from.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say this because we have got some decent players, and I think I'm always one to back a manager. I always say we shouldn't sack him because it costs more money and we're financially ruined anyway. But we have got some good players for the Championship that could play a part in a playoff team. So I think if we get relegated, I actually done a list of the players that we would get rid of and the wages. Our wages aren't that bad. They're probably around an average of 12 grand a week, which isn't astronomical. But I think if we go down, it's a complete rebuild, and we're quite lucky that we have got some good kids. Obviously, Jude Bellingham went last year, but we've got some good kids. And I mean, obviously, you can't just get relegated and throw all the kids in, but I don't know. To be honest, I mean, we're only just past halfway through the season, and I think I'm just being very pessimistic. But that's a Blues fan for you, I think. Pessimistic. Yeah. Expect the worst, and then.
Yeah, I mean, obviously winding the clock back a fair few years now. Obviously, we ended up going down into League One ourselves, but at the time it hurt. Yeah. You know, being in such a bad way, coming down from the Premier League, and you know, there was a lot of trouble at the top with the owners, and obviously Steve Morgan, and the chopping and changing of their managers on a regular basis. Obviously, unfortunately for us, the Dean Saunders saga. It really took us to go down to League One to almost get that stability back to the club. You know, bringing in Kenny Jackett, the right hands at the right time to get us back to where we needed to be into the Championship. A stable, good pair of hands, knew the league well. But again, you know, we did have those foundations. We did have that base, that structure of players. And the one thing that we can obviously say is that the fans never turned their back on us. The gates in League One were absolutely tremendous. The support was always there, and the rise back up through the divisions. Obviously, coming back up with Kenny Jackett, just missing out on the playoffs in the first season back in the Championship. You know, you don't see that for Birmingham at the moment. You see that you could potentially go down there, you could potentially rot. It's almost like, you know, Walsall have gone down into League Two. you could never really see them bouncing back. It's more, thinking from their level to their level.
Yeah. I think we are.
There's a huge difference financially as well between the Championship and League One.
Mm-hmm.
The money is quite significant, because you think from the Premier League down to the Championship, it does tend to filter down a little bit, and a lot of the quality as well. Your loan players, you can get your loans in the Championship from Premier League, but down in League One, it can be a bit of a messy league to get out of as well, really.
Yeah, because you look at League One now, and I mean, off the top of my head, you've got some good teams in there. So you've got Lincoln, who are top, who have obviously rose through the leagues, and then it's becoming a second Championship for me. League One, you've got Hull, Doncaster, Peterborough, Portsmouth, Charlton, and Sunderland, and that's the top 7. And they're all teams that have been obviously in the Championship and some of them in the Premier League. And it's just becoming like teams are filtering down the leagues and making the lower leagues even stronger. And that's worrying for a team like us.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the teams that have gone down there, Southampton have been down there, Norwich have been down there, Leeds have been down there. They've all managed to come back up through the leagues. I think Sheffield United have been down there as well. So it's not to say that you can't come back, but
I think under these new owners,
Wigan being another one. I mean, Wigan banging trouble now, aren't they? Obviously, they've got sort of. It's looking like a sure thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It could
go
one or two ways. Yeah, we could go down. We need to get rid of the owners. And it feels like we need to go down. We're just flirting with relegation every year, and it just feels inevitable. And part of you thinks, just let it happen. Go down, maybe get rid of the owners. Even if we do have a few years in League One, rebuild from the ground up, get some kids in, and just come up when we're ready to come up. And just do it that way. But, I mean, it's going to be shit in League One, because in my lifetime, we've never been in the third tier.
Oh, well. Okay, then moving on, just to a bit more of a neutral subject. Obviously, we've got a bit of a group chat, football, hot topic. Noticed last night a few feathers were ruffled on a few of the decisions. What do you think to the standard of officiating in English football at the moment, specifically at the top level?
It's infuriating, and it makes me not want to watch football at all. I used to sit in front of the TV every single game. I used to look forward to it, but you're watching football now and it's just annoying. Everything about it's annoying. And I've recently got into NFL the last couple of years, and I've started comparing the two. And like the officiating in the NFL is so good. It's almost perfect. And then you look at the embarrassment in the Premier League, especially with VAR. And I remember when it was trialled in the World Cup. And in my opinion, I was team VAR because I thought they've got to get the decisions right. And it was the World Cup. And I was thinking, this is brilliant, because it went really well. And I think a lot of people were saying, we need to get VAR. They brought it in, and it's just pathetic. That Thomas Souček sending off last night was an absolute embarrassment. If that's a sending off, it's ridiculous. You could see 10 sending off the game.
Yeah. I mean, I've made a couple of notes here myself, and one of the things that I've sort of started to warm to really is that I feel that the standard of officiating has declined quite drastically since empty stadiums in July. I mean, the point's been, I mean, obviously some of these aren't around the standard of officiating, but we've had a Hawkeye failure. We've had armpits offside, but now they're not. Dodgy VAR calls constantly on penalties and on red cards. A handball rule that is a complete and utter mess and a shambles. And for me, these authorities are so out of touch with the fans, because the fans make the sport. There's no doubt about that. And the only feedback that these authorities and these governing bodies seem to acknowledge is the moans and groans from the terraces. But right now, they haven't got that. So for me, is scrapping VAR ever going to happen? No. But if you spoke to the whole fan base around football, I think that the majority would say scrap VAR completely.
Yeah, I agree, because it takes away when fans do get back. You cheer. I mean, obviously in the Championship we haven't got it, so it's still kind of there. But you're scoring, you're going mental, and then you're like, you kind of limit it. It's got to be in the moment, a passion, and that's what football's all about. No other sport has that just passion. When you score a goal, there's nothing like it. But now you're going to be cheering, and then just waiting, and then cheering again, and it's just watered down cheers. And it's just, I don't know where we go, because you can't scrap it, and it's clearly not working. I don't know what the solution is.
I understand what you mean. I mean, you know, just even from my own point of view, sitting here watching the games on TV, it's half the experience without the fans being there. And even when you do score sometimes in games, big goals, big games, big moments, they're almost taken away from you through some lines on a computer system. And it's not what we've grown up loving, is it? And I think that the kids growing up today now are probably watching this and thinking, you know, are they turning off? Are they turning away onto other things? Is grassroots football going to suffer in years to come through the participation of sport? Who knows? But for me, I think that VAR has created more bad than it has good in the game. And I think that for me, I would get rid of it completely. But I think there's been so much investment and there's so much pressure on them to get it right that it's here to stay, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's like VAR came in to get the right decisions, but they're still clearly making the wrong decisions. Like that Hawkeye one, Villa last season, where the ball went over the line, and I don't know what happened, but the technology wasn't working. But there's still grey areas.
VAR
because they're putting lines on the pitch. Where's offside? It's impossible. And in a way, some of it isn't the ref's fault or the official's fault. It's just the way it is. So is it worth just scrapping it? I think a conversation needs to be had at the end of the season and changing the rules halfway through the season. You're changing handball rules, and it's just a mess.
I think some of the rules last season's pretty poor. You know, any contact with the hand whatsoever was deemed. You know, I mean, I think we had about 3 or 4 decisions last season where players have just literally skimmed their hand unintentionally in the box, and we've ended up scoring a goal from it. Ruled it out. I think with the handball thing, they really need to put some emphasis around the clear and obvious for me. And with the handball, I'd scrap it with VAR. I'd scrap that. There's too much grey area, like you say, for VAR to pick these decisions up. You've got to leave that to real time referees. If they don't see it, they don't see it, and that's good enough for me, and I can accept it. I think goal line technology, when that was brought in, was, you know, it changed the face of football. Elite level, Champions League, International, Premier League were brought in goal line technology at the time, and you know, it was a big thing. It was a big moment for the game. How can we progress it further? Offsides, I think the majority of the fan base may accept the offsides one. I'm not a fan of the lines coming out and stuff like that, especially when you've got a linesman directly in line, no more than 2 yards away. And if he can't toe out of line, then, you know, it's not a clear and obvious error, is it? Whereas it's hard from a referee if a player's gone in 2-footed and he's missed it. You know, that's a clear and obvious. Often incidents where the referee hasn't seen the decision should be being looked at and advised to go and look at the screen. Penalties, every penalty should be reviewed, but the referee should be watching them in real time. And offsides, and I'll draw the line at that.
I think with offsides, I think a bit of common sense should come in as well. Like, offside should be if the attacker is trying to gain an advantage by getting behind the defender. Having this literally an inch of sleeve over the line of defence isn't trying to gain an advantage. So let it go. It's just use your common sense. It's just, or I don't know what they could do, like feet. If you have size 10 feet, you're more likely to be offside than if you have size 6 feet. And these are the margins.
I know what you're saying, yeah. All right, and so obviously we're both against VAR. Me myself, it just needs tinkering. It was rushed. It was brought in far too quickly without being tested and trialed correctly. They should have perhaps taken it down a level into perhaps the Championship, trialled it there first before bringing it up through to Premier League, just to get it right. It's already caused too much debate for me than what it should do. It should almost be like it's there in the background if required, not basing the entire game around it, which is what it feels like to every fan who's watching the games now. Obviously, we've reviewed Birmingham, so I'll speak myself about Wolves and how I feel we've fared so far this season. Obviously, we had the best start to a campaign for God knows how many years at the start of this year. It was all looking bright and rosy. Obviously, we had the unfortunate injuries to key players to our team in Johnny and Jimenez, and over the course of the season, obviously, we'd also lost Jota to Liverpool. We'd had other injuries in key areas, like Podence had been out as well. But for me, it's not been anywhere near good enough, and it hasn't been good enough for a long time. We may have had a decent start to the season, but every time we've stepped up a level, we've been found out and we've been beat. I had a little look at the league table, I think, and other than Chelsea and Arsenal, we haven't beaten a top half side yet this season. And it was much of the same last year as well. I think our record, this myth that Wolves were so good against the top teams, when actually last season, I think other than Manchester City, I can't recall a top half. I think it was Manchester City and Tottenham were actually the only two teams in the top half of the table last year that we actually beat in a game. So we seem to be picking the points up against the teams perhaps mid to low table, and something's got wrong. We've never struck that balance of being able to compete with the top teams, but then at the same time being able to dip down and beat those top bottom level teams as well. The small squad's caught up with us over a period of time. Season back into the back up from the Championship. We lost an FA Cup semi-final from 2-0 up in a game. 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go, and we ended up losing the game in extra time. A threadbare squad caught up with us. Those issues weren't addressed. We went deep into a European competition last year, which obviously was affected through the pandemic, where we didn't play any football for 3 months. But again, we was done late in a game against Sevilla in the 80-something minute, which you could again put down to a small squad catching up with you towards the end of the season. Games that I know Sevilla went on to win it, and they're no mugs. They're a good, solid team. But we had our chances in that game. We missed a penalty early on in the game. There was not much in the game at all, chance-wise. But we always seem to find a way to almost lose a game when we should. Should we have won that European quarter-final? Potentially, if we'd have gone 1-0 up with the penalty miss. Should we have got to an FA Cup final the season before? I think so, yeah. 2 7th place finishes really isn't anything to sort of sniff your nose up at. But when you feel that within those 2 seasons, reaching the 7th in the league, season we almost finished 7th by default. We was banging there with a top 4 shout with 4 or 5 games to go, and we ended up sliding away and getting pipped by Tottenham to 6th on the last day of the season, putting in a no-show at Stamford Bridge. I suggested at that point, has Nuno taken us as far as he possibly could? And everyone was like, give him a few more transfer windows, perhaps with the right investment, he can kick us on again. But are we resetting now? He's trialled with a back 4. We haven't gone and signed the right backup striker at the right time. It's all come to a head for me, and the decline now has begun. We've never leaked that many goals. We're leaking goals for fun now this season. I think we've kept something like 2 clean sheets in our last 16, 17 league games. We fell over the line against a 9-man Arsenal team in the week, which was our first win since the start of December against Chelsea, which again was a last-minute winner. I personally do think that Nuno has as far as he possibly could. Would it be a knee-jerk reaction to pull the plug on him now? Perhaps it's not the right time. I have been quite vocal about it, and that I feel as though Nuno's time he's at an end. But pulling the plug now perhaps isn't the right thing to do. But the club should definitely be analysing this long and hard and thinking, should we be looking to make a change within the summer? Who knows?
I kind of think if you were to pull the plug on Nuno, now would be a good time, because for me, you're not going to get relegated. You're not going to get Europe. It's just like a dead season. So if you did bring a new manager in, which I don't think is the right thing to do, if you did bring a new manager in, he could have the rest of this season to build for next season, bring his own players in, get to know the players that are there. So I think it would be a good decision, well, not a good decision, but a good time to do it now if that was the decision they wanted to make.
Absolutely. I know what you're saying. You can identify he's got, best part of a third of the season left. He can have a good look at what he's got, identify what he needs. I did personally say that I would take Frank Lampard. I think he would attract players. And I think that's one of the most important things with a manager nowadays, is they've got to have that X factor, that players will want to go and play for him. I know obviously Nuno was a little bit of an unknown when he came over, but obviously with the right connections, we've managed to attract the right players anyway. I just feel as though it's almost, is this cycle of players that's brought us through to the Championship and this exciting football, has it come to an end? Are we in a bit of a transitional phase? It's just been a little bit disappointing. 3-1 up at Brighton at half time, and you're going life and death, and you're coming away with a point, and you're lucky to come away with a point, is not good enough for any team in that division. A no-show at Burnley, losing 2-1. The less said about the West Brom game at home, the better. Leading 2-1 at half-time and losing to potentially the worst team in the league. It's
shots fired.
Well, I think come May, I think that the league table will speak for itself, and I'd be very surprised if West Brom weren't sitting there with a wooden spoon in the hand. It's just been a disappointing season. Obviously, we've not had much to play for anyway. No Europe. The league's been pretty stagnant for a while, losing games, leaking goals. We went out the League Cup to Stoke in round 2 or round 3, I think. Losing at home to Villa, which, the Villa game really, it was disappointing to lose a derby game, but performance levels were there for me, that game. We were bang unlucky, and it was one of them games that, you're going to get every so often. You are going to batter a team, and then you're going to get sucker punched at the end, but the performance hasn't been there for me. We've obviously had Aston Villa at home. I think the Tottenham game at home over the Christmas period when we drew 1-1, the performance was excellent that day. We were so unlucky not to win that game. But that's the most concerning thing for me, is when a performance levels drop so much and so drastically, it makes you think, has the manager got the ear of these players anymore?
I think the Frank Lampard thing, I like Frank Lampard. I think he's a good manager. And he should never have been sacked by Chelsea, in my opinion. And like you say, he'll attract players. And I don't know. I think it's just a statement. If you were to get rid of Nuno now, it's a bold statement, and clubs are getting rid of managers a lot sooner now than what they used to. But I don't know if Nuno has been bad enough to warrant getting the sack. I think you've got to give him to the end of the season.
I think this is a fair point that I've sort of thought to myself over a period of time is, am I being a little bit cheeky in saying it's not been good enough this season. Have we overachieved in previous seasons in two seventh place finishes? I mean, the one thing to look at really is that everybody's raving about Aston Villa this season and how brilliant Aston Villa have been, and all the Villa fans are jumping on their high horse this season, saying, we're brilliant, and it's, look at us, we're back at the top, we're top West Midlands club again. But we've had two seventh place finishes in a row. Do you even see Villa finishing in the top 7 this season? For how good they've been, could they even better our achievements over the past 2 seasons?
Yeah, they won't. They won't.
And if they didn't, well, the one thing to look at is, well, for as bad as we've been, you've still not reached our standards or our levels.
Yeah, that's true.
And Nuno deserves all the credit in the world for steering us to those positions. I mean, last season being a little bit more disappointing, the fact that we kind of fell down into that position rather than grabbed it and climbed up and achieved that position like it was the previous year. We sort of, with a few games to go, we had big wins away at Watford. But last season, we kind of fell away towards the end of the season. Soft little performances at home to Arsenal, losing 2-0. Chelsea on the final day, bitterly disappointing again. But what it is with this season is that there's teams around us like Leeds, Crystal Palace, and we're below them in the table. I know that we've lost our top scorer and, arguably our best player. But I think to the performance levels.
I just think you probably have overachieved the last couple of seasons, and I think you've been spoiled because you've got used to that. You've got used to being a good Premier League team after just coming up from the Championship a couple of seasons ago, and now you are around 12th, 13th in the league, and now that's bad. Whereas for a team like Wolves, that's not a bad position to be in as a whole. I still think it's a good position to be in. So I think you've been spoilt the last 2 seasons with higher league finishes.
Yeah, I think so. I think you could call it the Liverpool factor in a way. I mean, you look at Liverpool over the past 3 seasons, they've made a Champions League final, lost to Real Madrid. Then they made a Champions League final and won it against Spurs, and then come second in the league, losing out on the final day with 97 points, which you'll never see the like of again. And then obviously last season, finally winning the league. So they've had a great 3-year cycle, a great 3-year run. And now this season, they've they've seemed to have dipped off a little bit through injuries, pretty much the same as us. And their fans are up in arms, calling. You see it all over Twitter. Some of them want Klopp out, and are we really cut from the same cloth, just not on such a high rated scale? Am I being unfair to Nuno? I wouldn't say I'm being disrespectful to Nuno for wanting better for the club. I've never sort of screamed and kicked and screamed all over Twitter saying, Nuno out and Nuno out. I've pretty much only kept my opinion to myself and just, mentioned it to a few of the lads that we sort of talk football with. Again, if he's the man to take us forward, then the board need to back him. Then they need to give him. They need to give him more money, as much as we possibly can, and say, go out there, build a squad, build a team. He's always been pretty sharp with getting rid of deadwood over the years. Anyway, anyone that doesn't cut the mustard's always been out the door anyway. Even players like Matt Doherty last season, that obviously was a big contributor on goals and assists, and has been a massive factor in this club coming from where it was to where it is now. But obviously he was also shown the door.
Yeah. What do you think of the Jota sale?
At the time, I was disappointed, and I was disappointed that we let with a player with such mass potential to go. Again, I don't think he had played all too well in the back end of last season. A lot of players said that after the Sevilla game, the deal was done anyway. I was disappointed for us to go, because I felt it was a sign of intent that we are a selling club. I know every player has his price. I felt that at the time that the money that was paid, probably they got the better end of the deal. Liverpool. And obviously, before his injury, his form proved that. You know, I think he scored a hat-trick in the Champions League, didn't he? And he scored a few big goals in the league for Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I actually think they've missed him, probably, arguably, as much as they've missed Van Dijk. They've missed Jota.
Yeah.
Since he's been out. I was disappointed.
Well, yeah.
He was also not replaced, was he? I know we spent big money on Silva, but he was never a direct replacement. I know obviously we've got Pope, and the rise of Neto in the past 12 months has been absolutely fantastic. And it's the only thing that I've been able to cling on to make me feel better about the Jota situation.
Yeah. So you look at your squad, and I think you've still got a young squad, and obviously Jimenez is out, and you bring him back, you're a good team again. So I think you can't really judge a manager again on having his main striker out, and you've got Fabio Silva, which I know from Football Manager he becomes a very good player. But it's unfair to, obviously you have no one else, but it's unfair on him to shove him in and expect him to just hit the ground running, which I don't think it happens like that. So I don't know. I think keep Nuno and add a few players. I don't know what's going to happen with Jimenez. He's obviously been linked away. I don't know if he comes back or he goes, but obviously that'll be a massive loss, and you'll have to replace him if he does leave.
It would be a huge gamble, I think, for a club to come in for Jimenez now and pay the money we'd want off the back of such a big injury. I think he'd probably have to prove over a 3 to 6 month period his longevity and the fact that he can recapture the form that he's shown, because some players never come back quite the same after a potentially career-ending injury. At the time, we all thought that that was a bad one, and he could have been done for good. We've all seen it with Ryan Mason being an example. He's never kicked up again since. So we will have to see. Neto, all of a sudden, like I say, the rise of Neto has been fantastic, and he has now become our prized asset. Will it be difficult to hold on to him? I really think it will be. Much the same as obviously Drew, we hope to see come on the channel soon. We'll speak about Jack Grealish and say, obviously, I don't believe that Aston Villa will sell him, but I am always of the same belief that every player has his price, and you can put whatever clause you want in the contract. But if one of those big boys come in and they want that player to improve their team, they're getting him. And it does not matter what is in that contract. A price will be paid, and I think I mentioned this on my Twitter page last night. Neymar is an example of every player has his price. It may have been absolutely ridiculous money. We may be living in a completely different world now, money-wise, for some of these big clubs. But the big clubs will always want the best players. So for Jack Grealish to see out his career at Aston Villa is absolutely absurd to me. I think they'll probably do well to keep hold of him. Yeah, they probably will. He may, out of his love for the club and his respect for the club, he will probably sign a contract where they won't get mugged off in the transfer market for him, and there will be, a clause that he can only go for so much money, just to help the club protect their main asset. But if Manchester United want him, if Manchester City want him, or if even further afield, a Bayern Munich, a PSG,
he goes.
Madrid, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. He's gone. Yeah, 100%. And he's going to look at his career with Villa. Obviously, he dragged them up. He kept them up last season, almost single-handedly. Got them promoted, kept them up last season somehow. And they're in the top half of the Premier League, and teams are going to come in for him, and he's probably going to look and go, I've saved this club for 3 years. I should do something for myself now. Go and get Champions League football, win some trophies, because you're not going to do it at Villa.
I've pretty much, sort of pitched this out there that in realistic terms, for the amount of England caps that he's got, given the opponents that we've actually faced in the games that he's actually played in, the handful of games he's actually only played against your Manchester Cities, your Liverpools, you could argue a case that he's still only a prospect. because he hasn't played Champions League football to prove it at that elite level. He hasn't played in big major finals on a consistent basis. He's not been in a team where they're challenging for titles and every game is a must win and it's pressure after pressure after pressure. So until you've actually competed at that level, can you be genuinely say that the kid is world class? There's no doubt about his potential and about what he can bring to a team, and that he would even get into the starting team of pretty much every team in the league. Has he proved it at that level yet to justify this crazy price tag that's been thrown around for him?
I think when he has shown, when the pressure has been on him, I think he has performed. But if he was in a Champions League team, performing week in and week out on the big stage, like for England, he's been good, and it pains me to say. He's been the difference.
Well, I think that's probably the only reason why you probably feel so excited about the player is the fact that he can actually contribute to the national team. Yeah.
And I obviously want what's best for England, and Jack Grealish being in the squad is best for England. I'm not sure. I mean, does he start? It's tough because there's so many players now. There's so many players, but I just think he does bring something different. And if the Euros do go ahead, he's going to be on the plane, and he should be.
I think we had this debate last night around what the best team would be currently for England. I have the idea that, if we're going to be playing 5 across the back, for me, there's no need to sort of have a player that, you don't need 2 holding midfielders for me.
No.
If you're having 5 at the back. So the perfect solution for the midfield 3, if we're going 5 across the back, I think a perfect balance really would be Declan Rice, Phil Foden and Jack Grealish. Sterling and Kane up front.
Yeah.
And you 5 across the back. You 5 across the back. I mean, I think the jury's really has been out on Trent Alexander-Arnold for some time now. Right full-back pretty much seems that it's probably likely to be Kieran Trippier at this stage, with Ben Chilwell filling left wing-back. And then the centre-back 3, I think Stones, Maguire and possibly Kyle Walker being the third leg of that.
Potentially. I think
Keith seems to like Pickford, but we're picking here what Gareth will pick. So if that's the case, we've got to put in Mason Mount in there, haven't we?
Yeah. But that team that you just reeled off, I don't think that'll be the team that he picks, because that's too attacking. He'll probably play 5 at the back, 2 holding midfielders. And say, I like Jordan Henderson. I always have. He got slated a few years ago, but I've always been a big fan of him. But I also like Declan Rice, and I don't think you can play them both because it's too defensive. For a team like England, it seemed a shame to keep those creative players on the bench. You might as well just attack teams. It's just frightening. So I agree. I pretty much agree with your line up there, but I can't see Southgate choosing that team. I can see if he does have 3 at the back, I think he'll drop Eric Dyer in there instead of Kyle Walker. And I think he might even still play 2 holding midfielders in Declan Rice and Jordan Henderson. And the keeper, I think it's going to be Jordan Pickford. It shouldn't be, but I think it will be.
Oh, I think we'd all go with Pope, wouldn't we?
Yeah. It's got to be Nick Pope for me. Obviously, you'd say Henderson, but he's not getting the game time, so it's got to be Nick Pope. But it seems bad to say, but we kind of need Pickford to make a mistake for England, because Southgate's going to keep saying, he's never let me down, but we don't want that first mistake to come at the Euros and it costs us the game.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much the thing with Joe Hart for England as well, wasn't he? He was kind of held on to a little bit too long. And it was only when he was completely thrown out of his club team was he almost forced the national team manager at the time, which I think was it Hodgson? Was it Hodgson? Was it? Tough question.
don't know. I have to look into that one.
Yeah, we'll have to have a little look into that one. But it sort of came around that time where he was, shipped off to Torino, where he was actually pulled out of the national team altogether. And that's the sort of levels we're probably talking about here. If a keeper's not playing at club level, how can you possibly play him at international level?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't get that with an outfield player. So, and I do think it's a key talking point, really, because as we obviously saw at the last World Cup, how crucial keepers can actually be. Pickford was amazing. Obviously, the shootout save got us through. I think he actually made a wonder save leading up to the corner that Yerry Mina actually scored from in the game. The save actually ended up being for nothing, really, but he'll always have a bit of a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts for the heroics in the shootout. But I think from most fans' point of view now, we'd all be pretty happy to see Nick Pope given a going goal.
Yeah.
It's always been a bit of a problem position, really, hasn't it, for England over the past few years? Joe Hart was obviously settled at one point, but he always had his critics. I think we haven't had a good goalkeeper or a good batch of goalkeepers for quite some time.
Yeah, I think there was a time there's a lot of English, and I would say there was a lot of good English goalkeepers, but they're all competing against each other, and there's not a clear favourite. It's chopping and changing. And that could be good because it's competition for places, but it's also bad because you haven't got a starter. No one knows who the main starter is. And that's from when Joe Hart got chopped, really. And there was obviously these young keepers coming through, and we've just been changing them all along.
I think the most exciting thing for England, I think if you look through the squad and the players that we've got, the pool of talent that's there at the moment, I think with Phil Foden and Jack Grealish at our disposal, we've got to be able to utilise these players and get the best out of our team. For me, it almost goes like, how can you almost field a poor team when you've got players of that standard in it? It's almost you historically you'd look back through England are playing Denmark perhaps 3 or 4 years ago, and you think, they're a danger because they've got Eriksen in the team.
Yeah.
No one knows around the other players that are actually in the team.
Yeah.
That just being one example. You can, should teams be looking at England and thinking, they're always going to be a danger because they've got this. They've got Foden, they've got Grealish, they've got Sterling in the team. We're talking here about players like Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford not even getting a look in a starting 11.
Yeah. And even Mason Greenwood, who I like a lot. But you can almost make 2 11s, it seems, with just those attacking players. It's good to have options, but again, I suppose they're all going to be competing against each other, which is a good thing. But it's just finding that right team, and you don't want Southgate to get too loyal to players who, I don't know, like Raheem Sterling for me. I just don't know about him. I think we've got more flair players than Raheem Sterling, and that sounds crazy saying, because I love him. He's obviously a great player, but you've got players who just bring you something else, like Foden. With every game I see him, he's becoming frighteningly good. Same as Jack Grealish. He just creates, and he wins free kicks because he dives a lot. And there's just so many options, and you can just chop and change them.
I think the most important asset to Sterling's game is his movement off the ball. He seemed to just prop up a lot, right place, right time, and he was scoring a lot of goals. Other than that, has he got fantastic aerial ability? Is he strong? Can he hold the ball up? Is he a great ball carrier? He's not really any of those things at all, is he? So you're kind of thinking to yourself, what does he really bring to the team? I can understand the argument, but I actually think he would be a great partner up there for Harry Kane. I think with the builders in behind him, Jack Grealish almost in the natural free role, pick the ball up, get into the box, carry the ball 30, 40, 50 yards up the pitch. Phil Foden Phil Foden with his vision, his passing ability. I really think that we could cause a lot of team problems in the latter stages of the tournament with those four players. With those four players,
it just seems like
I think Phil Foden as well, in a
win
way, is still very much an unknown to a lot of these, to a lot of the big teams and clubs and countries across Europe.
Yeah.
Catch a lot of them by surprise. Catch a lot of them by surprise. I really think so. I mean, I look at the draw. I look at the route, and I think, your Germany, your Spains, they're always going to be there or thereabouts. They're no mugs. They're well coached. They're well drilled. France, I think actually England might well be in there as far as, but France and Belgium for me are probably the two main teams that are there now. They're at their peak. They've got their squads, and they've just got a array of talent through the team. Belgium, obviously, Hazard obviously hasn't reached that standard at Real Madrid, gone very quiet. But he's still a naturally unbelievably gifted player. But in Kevin De Bruyne, they've obviously got the best player in Europe there. Big shout, obviously, with Ronaldo and Messi. But for me, Kevin De Bruyne, in terms of an all-rounded player right now, his performance levels over the past 2 to 3 years have been absolutely outstanding. France, obviously, reigning World Cup champions. So those two teams are going to be the ones to beat. But for me, there's no reason why we can't go deep into the competition.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we've got to win it. I mean,
the game's at Wembley.
I just think if we don't make the final, it's a failure with the team we've got. And we used to say about the defence, who we're going to play. John Stones, he's in the form of his life. Harry Maguire's kind of settled down now. And we just look good all over the pitch. I don't think there's a weak part. So I just think I'll be bitterly disappointed if we don't get to the final. Yeah.
I think I'd be pretty much in the same sort of mindset, really. Semi-finals, bare minimum for me, really. Okay, then. So we've covered off Wolves, we've covered off Birmingham, we've covered off the international scene, moving into the Euros this year. I think let's just quickly brush up on the club scene for the rest of the season, give a bit of a prediction guide for the Premier League, and then we'll wrap it up for our first discussion and our first video. Me personally, I think Manchester City will start to stretch a bit of a gap. I think they'll win today at Liverpool, and they'll start to put a bit of a blocker there, and they'll just manage the gap between now and the end of the season, because obviously they've got the Champions League restarting again. So to get that buffer of a gap where they can start to play weakened teams, and it doesn't matter if they drop the odd point here and there, will be quite critical to them. I don't really see any challenge coming in from behind, and that's where the problem is for me. I think Man City will probably end up winning it around about the 10, 11 point mark.
I think that's fair. I've been saying City all season, and I think they will win it by 12 points. They kind of, I know it's Man City, but they've almost gone under the radar. I feel like people are writing them off for some reason.
It's almost like they're not top of the league, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's almost like they're not top of the league. This game today on Sky Sports, Man City versus Liverpool, actually being billed as a title decider. That's absolutely absurd. Liverpool, for me, are not in it at all. Their fight is to come fourth.
Yeah. I think it'd be unfair to say they're not in it. I think they are at the minute. I think the game today is going to be 0-0 because that's what happens. We pick up a game, look for a sit down and ready, and then it's just 0-0. Because I almost think both teams will be scared of losing. Because if Liverpool lose, I mean, obviously it's too early to say the title's over, but I just think I can just see it being a draw, maybe 1-1. I think both teams will be scared to lose, but I think City would take a draw because they know it's in their hands and they're just going to get in cruise control at some point, and I think they'll win it by, like I say, 12 points at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think moving into the remainder of the season, I think Man United have probably got enough about them to stick it out, and I think they'll come second. I think Man United will come second, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. Not even at the start of the season, but probably after about around 10 games, nobody really saw this coming. The rise of Manchester United this season. Full credit to Solskjaer. He's got to tune out of the players one way or another. Bruno Fernandes, love him or hate him, he's an impact player. He's becoming a big game player at the same time. He's not everybody's cup of tea, mine included. But you can't deny the guy's record. He's come in, he's made a massive impact, and he's got goals, and he's got goals in big games. So I think Man United will come second. I think probably raise a few eyebrows with this one, but I actually think Chelsea might go on a bit of a run now with Tuchel at the helm, and I actually think they might progress into third. And not disrespecting Leicester, but I don't think that they've got the capability to stick it out at the top, much like last season. They were being talked about over the Christmas period as title challengers, ended up falling away into fifth. And I think much the same will happen again this year. Europa League will catch up with them. I think they might end up sliding into fifth. And I think Liverpool will cling on to fourth. I did predict at the start of the season that I didn't think Liverpool would come in the top four, because I saw this coming, that they were found out a little bit towards the back end of last season with draws at home to Burnley. I know they'd already got the title won, but they were still aiming for 100 points, and they lost away at Arsenal. They leaked about 3 or 4 goals at home to Chelsea. They almost fell over the line in a sense last season after the pandemic, and they really blew, breaking a points record of Man City's and laying down a real marker that we are the team to beat. I think a lot of people saw a lot of frailties in them the back end of last season, but looking at the league, I just don't see Leicester finishing above Liverpool. So on that basis, I'm going to slot Liverpool into fourth, Leicester at fifth, and then sixth, I think Tottenham. Sixth might actually be West Ham. I'll give them some credit. David Moyes has done a brilliant job this season, so I'll give them all the credit in the world, and I'll stick my neck on the line and say West Ham are all out for sixth.
Some bold shouts there. I don't think Leicester will drop that far. I think they've managed without. I don't know when Ndidi's back. Do we know when he's back?
Don't know,
because I don't know when he's back. But he's a big loss, and obviously Vardy's been out. He's back now. I think they've managed without them, and I think with them coming back, I think they'll be all right, and I think they will stay in the top four. I'm going to go City first. I keep writing United off because it's weird how they've just gone on this mad run from nowhere. So I keep writing them off. But I'm going to say they're going to get second. And I think Liverpool third and Leicester fourth. But I think Chelsea will really push Leicester. And I think they'll be jumping in and out of fourth and fifth all season, because I think they'll go on a bit of a run now. But I just think Leicester will hang on in there. And then even Arsenal. I mean, how many points behind Spurs are Arsenal now? Because I'd like to say
Arsenal on 31, Spurs on 36. Spurs with a game in hand.
See, I'd like to say Arsenal finish above Spurs. Well, I wouldn't, because I actually don't like Arsenal. I like Spurs. But I just think Arteta's just, I think he's just a man for Arsenal. I know that they're sitting 10th, and at the minute he doesn't look like the man, but I just think he's got more to show. And I think with a couple of years of that team signing his own players, I think they'll be all right. And they're bringing some youngsters through as well. So I'm going to predict Arsenal to finish above Spurs. It's a bold shout. I think West Ham will drop off. I don't know why. It's just because the West Ham.
Do you think they might? But you're thinking that they might almost do a Watford, and they're flying up early on in the season. They end up getting to that 40-point mark, and then sort of just shut off and end up on the beach. Last 10, 12 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are talking about Villa finishing up there, and I keep writing them off, but they just seem to get a win. The form's so inconsistent. They'll lose, and then I'll think, they're going to slip up there, and then they'll just go and beat Arsenal, and it's like, oh, they're back again, and they just don't seem to be going away at the minute, which is annoying. But I think Villa will get 10th because there's better teams around them. Arsenal are below them at the minute, and Arsenal will finish above Villa. I'm going to stick West Ham in 6th, I think.
You just said they would drop
Spurs
off.
will fade off.
You think Everton? I don't think
Everton will drop.
Everton. I think Everton will drop off as well. All right.
Yeah.
Domestic cups. I actually quite like the idea of playing the League Cup final a little bit later in the league, later in the season. Anyway, I think he probably gives it a little bit more credibility in a way. They've never obviously wanted to mix and match the fixtures of the FA Cup with the League Cup. That's sort of why it's always been fast-tracked earlier on in the season. But there's no reason why moving forward the final sort of can't be pushed back later on in the season. You'd almost, if you've got a team like Manchester City sort of competing on the front of, we've got the Champions League, and I think it just adds a little bit of prestige to the fact that if you've competing on the multiple trophies front, you can almost forget that you've already won the League Cup if it gets to the end of the season. I mean, everyone will look at Manchester City last season and think, they had a bit of a failed season because they didn't actually win anything. I know the League Cup doesn't hold much currency, but for me, if you win it a little bit later on in the season, it's a bit more fresh in people's minds. You say, they did win a trophy. So playing it a little bit later in the season, around about the April time, which I think it has been postponed to, might actually be a good move for the Football League moving forward as a last-ditch attempt to maybe hang on to the competition as a serious
match. Yeah. I think the only good thing about having it in February was because you can get a cup under your belt early on and then concentrate on the season. It's like Blues did when we won it and then got relegated. Win it and let's concentrate on the
relegation. Well, Wigan went one step further than you, didn't they? Wigan won then went down. So within the space of a week. Champions League. I mean, I can't see past Bayern being beat again. Personally, I think that they've still got good other players. I know Thiago's obviously gone, but they just look a real good team to me. I mean, Manchester City. I don't think they're quite there yet. They might go as far as if the draw falls right for them. They might potentially finally make a final, but I can't see Bayern being beat 2 legs or 1 leg.
Yeah, I agree. I think City will get furthest out the English teams, like the best English team, and
they might be the only team to get through this round.
Yeah, I think they're destined to win it soon. Whether it's this year, I don't know, but they'll win it. They'll win it in the next 2 or 3 years, and obviously I hope they do. I'm one of these who supports English teams, unless it was Villa in the European competitions.
That's a debate for another day. But anyway, good to chat. We'll definitely have Alex on again. He's going to be a regular contributor to the videos and to the channel. Like I said earlier on in the video, if you liked it, subscribe, share it, comment. Any feedback that we can receive, gratefully received. So, thanks very much for watching, and we'll have some more content for you up soon.